Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Thursday. It's April 27th. This will be our chart lesson for the day, and this will wrap up our week. As you know, no chart lessons on Fridays, so we'll wrap up the week today. I can't believe this week went by really quick, but needless to say, big rally today. Opened on as low and closed on our high, and the 2000 tick chart mirrors this. Very bullish day, very strong trend. There were really two legs up, but we had a leg up, a correction, and then we started a new trend up, and it went right on into the 230 hour. It's still, uh, actually, it's later than I thought it was. I thought it was almost 4 o'clock, but it looks like it is actually almost 5 o'clock. So the market has closed. So we'll reopen here shortly. So we did close very close to the high today. Um, it was not unexpected that we might see a pull. Usually when the prices shoot through the EMA like that, they will pull back and at least test it before they go lower. So I thought maybe that's what we were looking at today. But no, this is a sure enough strong rally here. And so now I would suspect that we're going to at least retest this high. We could just keep chopping sideways. Uh, who really knows? But um, based on the chart expectations here, after a break of this green channel, you would expect prices to retest the high. I just thought we'd really pressed almost too far down to really come back and retest that high, but never say never. The price action usually follows through and it usually plays out. And so it's just a little harder to gauge it on the daily chart than it is on the intraday chart because while this might take 30 minutes to an hour to form this many bars on a 2000 tick chart, it takes a day to form every one of these bars. And so things don't happen quite as fast, and it's a little slower moving and a little harder to gauge. Generally, just expect it to play out just like any chart, and it usually does. But and it looks like it may. This is going to play out after all. This is a retest. If nothing else, this is a retest attempt. We may not get a follow through and actually get a new high, but this is a retest attempt, and I would expect we'll get follow through buying here. Even if we don't get it tomorrow, next week, and we'll probably make a new high, uh, even if we are going to turn back down. So, uh, I mean, there it is. It's exactly that's perfect price action, really. I just found it hard to believe we were going to rally this strong. We hadn't seen a strong day like this since way back. We had one kind of mixed in here, but it was back weeks ago before we had last had some really strong buying on this move up right here. So this has all just been sideways, and then these really two bearish days kind of stuck out. So I thought there was a possibility the range was going to overpower everything. We were going to go lower, but no, it looks like we're going to retest that high before it's over. So that's my expectation as of today, and I'll stick to that until the chart shows us something else or something different happens. But anyway, let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart, and you can get a look at the two trends up, the two legs, and we'll go through the trades, and we'll wrap this week up. Okay, here's a look at our 2000 tick chart. You can clearly see we had this blue channel up, then we had a two-legged correction, and we had a spike and another channel up. This is when the market got really strong. Again, after 10 o'clock, it seems like the real movement starts after 10 o'clock lately. There's a couple of ways to measure this. First, I would measure just today's price action, and that got us to about right in here. But if it keeps going, then you would want to find the full measured move of this whole move, and then that gets us to here, which is interesting. We pretty much traded there to the tick, backed off, and then we tried to go higher, but just kind of chopped sideways into the close there. And so clearly two legs up. Again, this was a spike in channel here. This is really, I mean, it was obvious that this was a really strong trend. And this green one in there, you might even argue to be blue, and you might argue to take a few others if you recognize that this is what a strong trend this is. So, but let's zoom on in, go through the trades. I mean, it was one of those days where there's multiple trades in here, and they're mostly all good trades. So there was some news this morning at 7:30. So really from 7:15 on till about 7:40, I wouldn't take a trade, but you can clearly see two legs down there. This was tempting You might even, I mean, that's right at 7. When was this bar? When did this bar print? 7:39. I mean, that's 9 minutes after the news. It's still a little bit volatile right there, so maybe you wait until this higher low, and if it breaks above that, maybe you go long there. And again, you might take this other one. I mean, it's clearly 2 legs down with a second entry right there, so maybe you take it. This is just a higher low, and then we just started chopping sideways, but you can see we got multiple tests across here. Really, you probably could count this as the third test and then this as a fourth test, but this is just a purchase right off the, I mean, consistently we bounced off those lows. So I like going long just to ride it back to the highs, and of course it breaks out temporarily and fails and comes back. I wouldn't sell this breakout here, especially with this channel still in play. It comes back here. We really confirm this trend line right here. But because this didn't really work exactly off the close, you might wait, but you get another confirmation here. Not a very good signal bar though. But when you get a failed second entry short, notice that new low, you try to go short once, you try to go short twice, it fails and bounces. I like going long there right off the EMA, and off it goes. We'll move this out of the way because this is irrelevant now. Runs on up, and then we're chopping sideways again until it gets back to the trend line once again, and you can see that higher bounce, but it's right off the trend line. If it breaks above that, I try to ride it back to the other side. I like that one too. This is an important key entry point now. So every time prices come back to it, if you get a decent setup, take it. Runs up. There's a higher low right here, but it's right into that resistance. And even though this is a strong trend, you still got to be careful because you see it did get some resistance, and it could have turned down before it went up. In this case, it just went higher, but I'd probably sit on that. And of course, we run back. You get a second entry here, but you're still in this channel. You're underneath the EMA. You're not back to the trend line. And you can see you do get the close outside and the new low. So you got the green to go long again, and with it bouncing right off the key entry point, even though that's just a first entry, I'm probably going to take that trade every time, especially with trend line that's been that. I mean, that trend line's been very. Prices have respected it all the way up, and sent prices higher every time. So, buy that right there. And of course, we start moving up, get a close outside new high. We come back, and this time we get a little push and close through. And you never really get a setup, so there's no fear of going long or getting trapped there. Of course, there is a second entry here, but hopefully you can see that we're working on a second leg down here. Just to be patient, you got to wait on a higher low or something here. And of course, we run down, we get a close outside new low. There's a second entry long here that's very tempting. We do have the break and new low, and we're looking for prices to go higher. There's a second entry, and I mean, there's what, 4 ticks in that? It's not very bullish, but there's only 4 ticks in it, and it closes halfway, and you got to ride back. And this was working sideways too, so there's always a chance it's probably going to fail on the breakout and snap back. That's what most all breakouts do. So there's a reason to consider that trade. I did not mark it. There's been so many good trades. Why risk that? But if you were just coming in here and that was, you just came in somewhere in here and you only had one set up, maybe you consider that. There's a higher low here, but it's just too sideways right there. But maybe you take that trade. And off this thing goes. And you get a close outside, a couple legs back. There's a second entry there, and then another higher low. Go long right there. And this thing just takes off up through here. You get a little overshoot, leads to a close outside, and then you're just chopping sideways. It does make a new high there, and it just continues to chop sideways. This pretty much confirms this trend line right here. But you're in this range, and there's not much room, and you see it does find resistance. It works out and comes back, but I'd wait on that breakout pullback first, And so when it comes back here, if it breaks higher right there, that's a failed second entry short and another bounce right off the key entry point, right off the EMA. That's the trade I like and would enter right there. This is an engulfing bar, so there's a possibility you might have taken it on the break above this bar and tried to ride it up. If you saw it that way, take it if you like. You're better off to wait. This reversal is a better entry. And then there's two legs back and another second entry, but that signal bar is not very good. Again, there is another high or low here, but there's not much room to the highs. It looks a little congested. It looks like we're kind of starting to run out of steam, so you got to be a little careful. But guess what? It takes off again. So, I mean, and if you look at this, this is obviously one of those kind of trends. They usually don't go this much sideways. They're usually more up in these tighter channels like this. But if you recognize that, especially when it starts back here, you might enter every signal bar that comes back that has a good signal bar like there. This one's not really right at the, I mean, it gets outside the trend line, but it closes back at it. Every one of these close back at it, and they're all good signal bars. So technically, you might take any of those because it's a strong trend. Now, this last one up here might have failed, don't you? And you can see that one would have failed. That would have been the only one out of all those that failed. Um, so something to think about there. I mean, that's the problem with these. But generally, when you get in this, any of them that look this good, they're almost worth taking. Usually, you want the ones that correct back, and so that would be um, that would include this one, but it's all the way back to the top in the midline. But that would include this one, and these are continuation from this pullback here. So these are not really like new pullbacks. So that's another reason to weed those out. You want it to be the pullbacks like this one. Um, there's only one here, and that's on a breakout, so I don't really like that. Breakout of this range, so I don't really like it. But anyway, we come up, we get a break outside, we just start chopping sideways. This is a second entry long off the key entry point. Again, it's an engulfing bar. It breaks lower and turns up. So you could actually trade that with a 4-tick, 5-tick bar or so there and get a very low risk entry. Or you could just wait for it to close. There's still room to scalp out there. So, but notice there's a first entry and it pulls back in a second entry, and we weren't back to the highs yet. So we don't have to really, and this is pretty much back to the EMA. So maybe you take that trade. This is a high or low, but there's not enough room there. Just skip that one. It would have worked, but just skip it. And then, of course, we're just chopping up. And finally, we get a trend back. Close outside. We try to go short once, and it bounces again. And look how long we've pretty much been away from this trend line. And so I like that high or low. Again, that's a second entry. First entry, pull back second entry. And again, it's engulfing bar. I don't know if I'd trade this one on the engulfing bar. Maybe you do. It's not out of the question. That's really where the second entry triggers. But the better trade is when you get the failure, then definitely get in and you look at it go, boom, it's off to the races. And you don't really get one of those that pulls back to the trend line except for here. And by the time it closes, it's already to the top again. So you can't really enter there. There's another one here, same thing. It doesn't really correct. It just kind of continues on. So, and then finally we do correct. And it bounces here, but you just can't go long right there. Second entry short, but I wouldn't take any shorts in this market, and that takes you into 230. So, I mean, this was a really strong spike and channel up right here. And I'm not sure, why the market got so bullish today. Maybe it was because we were a little oversold there after 2 days of hard selling. And I think there's some news floating out there that the next rate cut's only going to be a quarter of a point, and then that may be the last one, and they may even start reducing the rates. Like I've said before, I think they write the news to fit the price action. Now that I understand how all this works, I used to always try to keep up with the news and see what was affecting the market. And unless there's some unexpected news item like an earthquake that destroyed some city, major city in the U.S., or a terrorist attack, or something really crazy like that in the middle of the day that was totally unexpected, uh, the news doesn't have anything to do with it because, I mean, if we go back and we look at that daily chart, and here it is, based on our rules, what would you expect to happen after a break of this green channel? You would expect prices to rally and go higher. And notice this was a first entry, this was a second entry long on a daily chart. And it looks like we're probably trying to make a retest attempt. And that's what the price action tells us. That's what we should be expecting. I did notice the markets opened back up, and we opened up well off the highs and well off the close. So this thing might have got a little done today. It might have been some short covering in there, punishing all these shorts that piled up in here. They ran them all out today. So we'll see what happens. This thing could just keep going sideways. It's hard to know, but the price action, I mean, the expectations are that we're going to retest these highs. So I'm looking for that to maybe happen unless something changes. So because that's what the rules tell us will happen most of the time. The rules hold true. So, but that's it. Let's go back one more look at the 2000.